evangelism overall in North America. Yesterday we discussed it from a corporal level, from the body of Christ, the idea of how every church is a mission church and how all of us are missionaries and what that means for us as a community in North America and the potential for that, how we can change North America globally when we buy into that idea. Now for today, this session, this theme, is personal call to evangelism. So what we're going to do to facilitate logistically, if you have questions, which I know a lot of you did from yesterday or from today, we're just going to line up for the sake of order. You see there's a stationary mic right in the middle over there. So if you have a question, you just come right up, line up over there, and we'll take one person at a time. And we'll try as best as we can to just keep it in the context of this theme, this discussion, which is personal call to evangelism. I know for me personally, I didn't get a chance to tell you who I was yesterday. My name is Mina Merham. I'm from New York. Very passionate about this topic. I've been discipled and gotten to learn a lot from the fathers here about this in the past 2 years, doing full-time mission evangelism within the scope of the church in North America and in Europe. So it's something that's really close to my own heart, and I think for us, all of us, no matter where we come from, whatever parish we're in, whether it's a traditional parish, non-traditional, wherever you are in America or Canada, it can really be beneficial for us individually. So that being said, I want to introduce one more time the fathers in case you didn't catch them yesterday. The first one, I'm not sure who this, he just wandered up here, I don't know. So Father Anthony, of course, and then Father James from Chicago. You feel free to clap, no problem, you can clap. St. Paul, Chicago. Father VJ from St. Basilius, St. Gregorius Church in New Jersey. Father Michael from St. Anianos Church in Princeton, New Jersey.
Thank you.
Good job. It's a very confusing name for me, but I nailed it. I think I nailed it. And Father Andrew, a personal favorite from Staten Island originally, but now serving in Connecticut, St. Peter and St. Andrew. Representing. So with that being said, we want to open it up to questions. We're not going to have the intro that we did last time. We want to give you more chance to ask your own questions. So we are officially open for questions. If you feel, just give a hand raise. If not, we can warm it up with an easy one until you guys think about questions. So to warm it up until they can think, the question of what is evangelism for me as a person, as an individual, what does it mean? You guys. Humility is good, right?
Okay, I guess I'll jump in. I'll warm us up. So I think when I think about evangelism, the whole idea of evangelion or evangelism, it's experiencing or sharing the good news, which is the victory that we have in the life of Christ. One of the things that Saint Athanasius says in his book on the Incarnation is he talks specifically about this idea of what it means to experience this life of communion with God, and how when we experience this life of communion, that this evangelism or this victory that we have by being united to Christ, the natural byproduct of it is that people see transformed lives, and that transforms them. So the example that he uses is that if you have a blind person and they can't see the sun, but they can feel the warmth from the sun, they know there's a sun. And he says, so much for us as the church, when they see us and they can't really put words to it, but they know that we're living differently, or we were living a certain way, and now our life is really different, that gives them cause to pause and to ask questions. And I think that model of evangelism is the model that I see in the early church, which is, in a simple way, if you will, our transformed lives by Christ transforming life, leading to others' lives being transformed. I think, for me, that's what the message of evangelism is. I'll just share one more quick point. Yesterday, when I shared this quote from Father Schmemann, and someone asked a question afterwards, I cut off the last part, and I'll just share that last part with you in this second panel. So where I left off yesterday was when Father Schmemann says, mission is the organic need and task of the church in the world, the real meaning of the church's presence in history between the first and second Advent, the meaning of Christian history. And where he continues is as follows. He says, obviously, Not all members of the church can go and preach in the literal sense of the word, but all can have a concern for the missionary function of the church, feel responsible for it, help and support it. In this respect, each diocese, each parish, and each member of the church are involved in the missionary ministry of the church. So I think whether or not you are directly associated with mission and evangelism in the traditional sense of the way that we might think about it, I think every one of us can have a heart for the world, which is really the heart of Christ. So I guess in a simple way, that's how I would understand evangelism.
Just to still think we can bring you the mic if you're shy or just tired.
Are the words mission and like mission church and then evangelism, are they interchangeable? And if not, can you explain the difference?
What do you think?
Brother Anthony.
No, it's Father James here. It's quiet yesterday. I mean, I think the way, again, there's probably a million answers to that question. Evangelism, I think, is what Father Michael just described in terms of just how we express Christ in us, like that light, that that heat that comes out of us from the light that we have, in any way. And a lot of us, there's a couple of people that I spoke to yesterday here that I just met, and they just said, we're good with everything, but I don't think our talent or our ability is for mission. So what can we do? That's great that these churches are focused on that. I think Abuna Andrew said it very clearly yesterday. And even though it was said clearly, it's going to have to still stick and penetrate our minds. It's the role of every Christian. The evangelism part is not an option. Tomorrow we're going to read the Gospel of Matthew 6, where when Christ said, "And when you pray," praying is not an option for it. It's when we pray, when we fast, when we give. It's just the normal things that a Christian does. So somehow we accept, yeah, of course Christians pray, fast, give. But one of the things is it's also not an option when he said, go and preach the gospel to all nations. And the thing that we maybe confuse is what's the go? How do we do that? And again, there's a million answers to this, but it could be as simple as just starting, in terms of what Abuna Anthony said, in terms of what's a small step? Maybe a small step towards that is, if I'm at work, if I'm at school, start building a wall all around me and introduce nobody into my life. Maybe you, like me, we're probably given a lot of parental advice, when we were kids, teenagers. Yeah, Abuna. They used to call me Abuna when I was a kid. Yeah, Abuna. Don't hang around, those stick to the church. Stick to the church. And maybe our mindset is, I'm not going to build any close relationship or any relationships outside of church people. But if we do that, how is the evangelism? How are we going to get to the point of talking to other people if we build no relationship? Why would they even bother listening to you? Why would they care that you have something, a treasure that you have? So I think if we can just start with a small step in terms of, those people that I totally ignore, I'll leave my door open. I'll hang maybe a small cross in my office or hang around my neck or something that you're not going to flaunt, but you want to just try to open a door. We need to just start like building a relationship so that at least we can start. So the whole evangelism aspect is not just for the mission churches. It's for each and every one of us in this room. And can you build a relationship? Can I build a relationship? We can all. We're doing it right now. Now we just have to do it with, another outer circle. Maybe they're not going to be your best friends, but just a step. It's just one step, towards that relational, building that relation that can open a door for you to introduce Christ into their lives. And that's it. I mean, like I said, there's a million answers. But just to show that, I can't fit in, well, I think we can all fit into that one. I'll leave somebody else in terms of the mission aspect.
I feel that we're going back again to titles, and instead of being a team, we're trying to be a committee. Let us have titles, let us have steps 1, 2, 3, in order for us to know if it's a mission or evangelism. What is the title of His Holiness Bob Tawadros? Does anybody know? Huh? Patriarch وبعدين. Okay. بنقول the title, I'll say it in Arabic because I'm not sure what's the translation in English. It's Baba الكرازة المرقسية. The See of St. Mark. What St. Mark did in Egypt, he witnessed to Christ, right? So the first among equal, the patriarch is the See of St. Mark or Baba Kraza. So basically, his title introduce his responsibility and his job description. So the Coptic Orthodox Church is a church of evangelism, a church of mission. We said yesterday, we tried to do this in Egypt, and we couldn't because there is limits, and there is laws, and there is obligations, and we don't want problems. But the rest of the world is free. You can go and do mission, and you can witness freely. And believe it or not, there is people who are Coptic, and they are witnessing without preaching, and they're changing lives of people. True? You guys know about people who convert and became Christians, and sometimes they live as Muslims in Egypt, okay? But they have the relationship with Christ. As Abuna Michael and Abuna James said, it is not something new we are introducing, but maybe something, I don't want to say fail to practice, but forget to practice. Because we're still fulfilling the commandment of Christ. Let us serve Jerusalem first. And we've been stuck in Jerusalem for how many years? 60 years? So maybe this is a time for us to still serve Jerusalem and witness outside of Jerusalem. We talked about first generation, second generation, third generations, okay? And I think those people need the same service we provided for the newcomers coming from Egypt in 1960 and 1970. So now we need to fulfill their needs. Same teaching, same church, same dogma, same theology, same sacrament, same everything. But in a way, they can understand it. In a way that they can feel the belonging to the church. So still, I don't want you guys to know, is it mission, is it evangelism? It's witnessing to Christ. Call it whatever you want, but just witness to Christ. Witness to Christ with your behavior. Witness to Christ how you live your life. Witness to Christ how you deal with the people. I love what Abuna Anthony is doing here in this attack conference. We're attacking all those things, right? Priorities. What's the priorities in your life? He said the priority is between me and God. You're not going to be able to go and witness unless you have something between you and God. So if you have nothing between you and God, I'm sorry, you're not going to be witnessing, right? So let us start baby steps. And when God fill your heart and the Holy Spirit give you the movement, you can start in Jerusalem. And believe it or not, how many people we know in our churches, in our houses, in our families, in our friends need to be served? A lot of people. Do we serve them? If you start with Jerusalem, you're doing a great job. Then Jerusalem will be spread to Samaria. Then it will be spread to Europe. Then it will be spread to Egypt. Then it will be spreading to America. So first is have the relationship with God, witness within your family, then the rest will come very easy.
If I could follow that up, actually, there was someone just sent me a quote last night from Father Henry Nguyen. I'm not sure if y'all are familiar with him. So Father Nguyen was a Catholic priest, rather. A great author, wrote a ton of books that many of us probably have in our own personal libraries. And on this point that Father Andrew was just talking, he's speaking to a group of ministers. And he said to them, ministry is the least important thing. He goes on to say, you cannot minister if you're not in communion with God. A lot of people are always concerned about how can I help people or help youth to come to Christ or preach well, but these are basically non-issues. If you're burning with the love of Jesus, don't worry, everyone will know. They will say, I want to get close to the person who is so full of God. I think this is evangelism. So evangelism is having the victory of Christ. This is the gospel, right? Evangelion. Evangelism is the personal witness in my life based on a life of communion with God. Mission, I think, is going out and speaking to others. So part of that, we also have to understand who we're speaking to. So audience is really important. If I'm going out and speaking to someone who was raised as a Copt, I'm going to speak to them a certain way. But if I'm going to talk to someone that looks a little bit different, I'm going to put on in the way that Christ was clothed with flesh. I'm going to be clothed in a sense in their skin so that I can speak with them, right? So we have some funny looking people sitting back there with mustaches on, right? I don't know if you guys see. Yep. So if I want to speak to these people, let me put on my mustache here because I need to be able to relate to them, right?
Where is Gabby?
Right, so here you go. So if I want to relate to these funny-looking people back there, I'm going to put on my mustache. This is mission, right? I'm getting clothed to relate to my peeps back there from Pittsburgh. It's in the house, right? This is mission. This is me going out and speaking. Whoa, pictures, no pictures. Hashtag no pictures, all right? All right, whatever. We've got a video going. So this is mission. This is mission, all right? We'll clip this part if need be, all right? So this is mission. So I think this is the distinction between evangelism and mission. Mission, if you want to call a church that engages in mission, is a church that has a lot of these people that are evangelists and missionaries. And this is what makes a church a mission church, or a church that engages in mission, because a lot of people in that one community have this common vision. They're living the life already, evangelism, and they're going out, and God has put it in their hearts to share this message with others. Okay, and this is part of the vision of that church. So I think I don't know if that helps to kind of distinguish between what is evangelism, what's mission, and what's a church that engages in mission.
Hi, my name is Mina Sleeve from Queens, New York. My question is, what do you think about, my opinion about the Coptic society is that we're very risk averse. Like, we don't take upon a lot of risk, which might be one of the reasons why we don't get involved with mission, or we don't get outside our comfort zone. We're very scared to do something different. And we shoot for like a kind of a comfortable life. And I don't think mission could be comfortable, or I don't think choosing a different career path is most of the time comfortable. So what do you think about Coptic society not being risk takers? Do you think that could be a reason for not doing mission?
Anthony, we were talking about the comfort, about the comfort zone you had.
I'll leave that for you guys.
So maybe we'll have the Indian priest here answer that.
You can bash his head
The Coptic question.
Well, I got to be honest. I find that certain ministries I find very impressive. I talk to my youth all the time about JC for Jesus. When the Jersey City Church, West Side Church, goes out and goes to exchange play, yeah, West Side, what's it? So you guys go out and give you put together a certain amount of money every week and go out to on a Thursday night to go preach the gospel. And I've seen pictures of people going together to Times Square and doing the same thing. And so we do things like that. We do these comfortable, easy things like that. So meaning you're correct in a way that we do little things here and there, and at the same time we in the Indian church we're not much different. If a person who is of a different look came into one of our parishes, Indian church, all of the older men in the back would just look. And then the older women will look. And then everyone will just start staring at that person until the person's going, what did I do wrong? And then they'll be going, I think you meant the Episcopal church down the street. So that's... So I don't know if that's the same scenario in your churches, but the idea is that we do have an idea of this is our community and we're comfortable here. And when we get shocked by things that are not comfortable, it takes us out of the comfort zone. It takes us out of, like, for example, I'll give you one of the best examples. One of the big things that are happening in a lot of Orthodox churches around the nation is the creation of cry rooms. This is where you put babies into a room with their mothers, separate from the liturgy. And the reason being is because we want to be comfortable to hear the liturgy perfect, crystal clear sound, and we want to hear everything so perfectly. We don't want the distractions of the baby crying or the kid fiddling with his fingers or pushing the other kid. We don't want any of that. But at the same time, we forget that the church is a community, and the church is bringing in more people. And we, even in our own communities, don't want to talk to other people within our same parish. And we create these little containments that are difficult. So meaning you're correct in a way that I think this is, for all Orthodox. But the realization is that how many of you all here believe that the church, the Orthodox Church, is for everyone? Raise your hand. How many of you are ready to serve in that type of mission? And it takes, even for myself, to go out and go tell someone to come in is difficult. I do a once a month Bible study. I took it from Abuna Anthony and Light and Life and The Well, and I created something called The Garden. It's a once a month Saturday night Bible study, and what we do is, sorry, there's no copyright, is there? We do the everything in English, and then we do like some music ministry and skit team ministry, and then we do I do a Bible study, and then we do a prayer time at that time as well. And I tell my parish every single time, I like it that you guys come, but I want you to bring one or two friends. And we've done this for a year, and I think 2 friends have come. So either my parish has no friends or not comfortable. And so, and the thing is, when that is something that we need to get past. If you're really passionate about sharing your faith, then it's a matter of just being able to say, yes, I believe in Jesus Christ. And not only saying that to your priest, but saying that to people you work with. And not in a way that's, in your face, like knocking on your door, come to my church. But as it was said, wear a cross or just begin those simple discussions.
Can I just add one more bit of insight, which I think it's just a bit of insight that's really important is that our church, we've got to remember a couple things. One is we're an immigrant community, so we're still trying to maintain who we are, and our parents' generation, there's an identity crisis going on in the community, and so what does it mean for them? And we talked about this a little bit yesterday, but what does it mean for them to maintain this sense of identity where the two have been kind of interwoven for centuries? The other thing that's really, really, really important to remember is that we've been a persecuted church. So we've been fighting for survival. So when you say that we're averse to change, absolutely. Because us kind of keeping ourselves closed up and protected has been part of what may have kept the church surviving, is coming together, close together with Christ in our midst. And anyone who was different was someone who may have been trying to hurt them. So I think it's important to keep that in perspective. Whereas for our generations who have been raised here, we're thinking like, man, we want to go out and we want to speak the truth. And like you even find that dichotomy in the clergy meeting where like some of the clergy, there's, that are coming from Egypt, it's very much status quo. Then those who are raised here might speak a little bit more boldly in the clergy meeting and say whatever's on their mind.
I keep my mouth shut.
Actually, Abuna Anthony keeps his mouth shut in the clergy meeting. But there's a dichotomy that's there, and I think that's expected. So I think that tension, it's a normal and expected but healthy tension. But I think that backdrop is really, really important to remember where we're coming from as a persecuted church.
Something else. You said Copts, but if you look in all the Orthodox churches, they are the same. Because all the Orthodox churches were persecuted. The Ukrainian churches, I meet with the bishops there, they have the same issue, the problems. Same like us, all the language. Like they have to figure out, gonna do the liturgy and the sermon in Ukraine, or do it in English. If we do this, the newcomers from Ukraine will be upset, but the young generation will leave the church. They are struggling. All the Orthodox families are struggling. The different people are the people who ruled the world, like the Catholic and the Protestant. They are missionary because they invaded Egypt, they invaded Europe, they invaded Africa. So they go and send people and preach. They have the upper hand, right? So we are trying to keep up and learn from them. It is not something new for us because, as we said, we are all witnessing to Christ. But as Abuna said, our background is totally different, and we're trying to change this background. And it may change in this generation or next generation, I'm not sure. But at least the 15 or 20 people who raised their hand and said, we want to join this type of service and ministry, we can start with those people. Then they will have influence. Then those people will take you out of your comfort zone, and you will go and witness with them for Christ.
Okay, my question is there a difference when you are evangelizing to people born or baptized in the church as opposed to evangelizing to someone outside of the Coptic church, whether it's another Orthodox sister church or a completely different religion? And also, if so, is that part of a stepwise process or approach in spreading the love and word of Christ? And if there's any plan as far as that?
Listen, I always have something to say. And if no one's going to grab the mic, I'll just share. So I think St. Athanasius, if you guys can't tell, I really love this book on the Incarnation, and he gives a fantastic model for this. So the third part of the book, the first two parts, he's talking about why the Incarnation, and then he speaks about the cross and resurrection. The third part, he's responding to the Jews and the Gentiles. And I think he sets up a fantastic model for how we should speak the truth in love. So, absolutely, depending on who we're speaking to, there's a different starting point, okay? The first step, though, to figuring out who we're speaking to is to listen, okay? One of the first points that I would always, when I was back in my sales days, I would always tell my sales team, before you start selling, ask questions and listen, and ask more questions and listen and understand who you're talking to. Get a little bit of information about where they're coming from, their experience, why they've come to the place of faith that they're in now. I met a guy a couple nights ago as I was coming out of a restaurant, and the guy stopped me, and he started sharing a little bit about his background, his own experience. He's like, I was this, and now I became this, and then gave him my phone number. He sent me a long text message and gave me a lot more about his background. The guy's depressed and what brought him to this place and his own religious journey. Before I'm going to offer him anything, I need to know where he's at. And I think St. Athanasius gives us that model. To the Jew, he spoke a certain way. To the Greeks, he spoke a different way. To the Jews, he spoke to them from the scripture. From the Greeks or the Gentiles, he kind of takes them through a progression. So he says, if a person doesn't even believe in God, start with them there. So the atheists, I'm talking to them differently than an agnostic, okay? And Athanasius of Alexandria, he gives this model. It's fantastic, okay? It's like, it's a dummy's guide for how to speak to people coming from different places. I think the main thing, regardless of all that, who we're speaking to and listening, the biggest part is when we speak, we've got to speak with meekness and respect. And that's the words of Scripture, 1 Peter. He tells us that when we speak, we should do so with respect and with meekness. To me, that trumps anything else. If when we're speaking to people and we listen to them attentively, we don't know the answers and we go do the research and we care and love enough about them to come back to speak to them where they're at, not where we're at, I think that tells them how much we care about them and where they're at on their journey. But I think it's always got to be done in a spirit of meekness. Share a quick personal story that just says that it's not about winning the intellectual battle, okay? About 14 years ago, I was having a debate with some guy about faith. And I crushed this dude intellectually with the battle, okay? I proved every single point that I was right and he was wrong. And at the very end, he says to me, if you're a Christian, I don't want to be a Christian. It's not about winning the intellectual battle. It's about speaking respectfully and lovingly to people where they're at and answering their questions. But that requires us to listen attentively and to be willing to work with people where they're at, not making assumptions. So I think it's a fantastic question. And I think Athanasius gives a fantastic model for us to follow.
Okay, I'll just project. Okay, I will project. I confess I'm not comfortable with bringing anyone to a liturgy service. And I'm wondering if you see it in the future of the American churches, if similar to the churches in Africa and how they've changed up the music to fit the culture of the African people, and we could get into that kind of worship, like rock on worship, if that is a possibility. Like the feelings that you get in the liturgies in the churches there just haven't happened here in America yet. And could that happen?
Yes. So I have one anecdote, and then the Coptic Orthodox priest who can really address this will be. I have no bearing on this, but in the Indian Orthodox Church, this is 30 years ago. Anglican bishops came to India, and they wanted to, the Catholicos wanted to give them, bring them to a liturgy, and they wanted to hear a liturgy. So what they did, the priests, they took the liturgy, translated it into English, and they put it to American song. So, like, for example, like, they took the song "What a Friend We Have in Jesus" and the hymn, and they put one of our liturgical songs to it. And so the service was beautifully done. They did, like, the choir was perfect. Everything was amazing. So the choir director, this priest, he's one of my teachers. He came up to the Anglican bishops and he's like, "So how did you like it? How did you like it?" And so the Anglican bishops turned to him and the Catholicos and said, "If we wanted to go to one of our services, we would have went to an Anglican service. But if we wanted to come and hear an Orthodox service, and so we came to an Orthodox church." And so they basically criticized the fact that we were changing a little bit too much of ourselves to fit a new mold, which didn't fit us. So the cautionary tale, and it's not to say that we can't do this, but the cautionary tale is that change has to happen in some ways, but the change has to be in such a way that we don't lose our identity. So, like in the Indian Orthodox Church, we've taken the tunes, the traditional tunes, and put them to English. So everything is in English, but it's in a traditional tone. Now, it's difficult, but you have to, like, these are the baby steps that happen. And in the Antiochian Orthodox Church, they had the same exact experience, and they've been here for 100 years. And they went and they started doing praise and worship in their liturgy, and then the third generation went back to Syria and said, "We want the original tones," and they changed their liturgy back to the antiphonal system. So if you look at the history of the Orthodox churches, it's tied to our music and tied to the culture of our service. So it's one of those things that we have to be very careful about.
I'll say something on that one too. I'll say something too. And I didn't want to, I'm doing my best not to talk, but first of all, I want to say thank you to that nice lady who asked, okay? We're taking everything here in a simple spirit, so please don't feel embarrassed to ask. No one's going to look at you funny. Like, everything here is like, we're being very open and honest, and we want you to. So please, like, when someone asks a question, like, we love and respect all the questions. So I love your question because it has a beautiful spirit, which is you want everyone to feel welcome, and you want everyone to feel like they can worship there. Here's what I'll say, and I'll be very, very blunt and very honest. There's certain things that I feel like the liturgical worship, I feel like, to be all honest, with all due respect, is that something that's way above us, okay? And we just do what we're told to do. And some people here may have opinions. We have not opinions, but it's not our place. We don't have the right or the ability to change the hymns of the liturgy. What we do have the duty to do is to do them in such a way, to the best of our ability, as professional as possible. And I know there's some people here, and I know some people who are very passionate about taking the hymns of the church and doing it in not just in the English language, but doing it right in the English language. Okay, and I know there's a group of people who, they have this conference call on Wednesday nights, and they stay for 2 hours or whatever it may be, and they sit there and fight about, like, exact ways to say it. And what I like about it is it's not just to be hymnologically correct, but it's to be American sounding correct. Meaning, like, I don't know, they explained it to me, like, the way you emphasize certain words. Like, we would never say, give me an example. Like, Amen versus Amen. Okay, that's another one, but even like another one. Like the name Mary, okay? We would never say, like, Mary. Okay, like sometimes you hear people say in English and they say Mary. But Mary is not English, okay? It's Mary. So we want to say the hymn in a way that we're saying it in a way that's natural. So my point is, what's above us is changing the tunes and the hymns. That's something that the church tells us. We do what the church tells us. But what's within our ability is to do the best that we can. And then the other thing that I will say is that, and again, I respect your question very much, and I don't know where you're coming from, but I'll tell you where I'm coming from. Where I'm coming from is the church that we pray at on Sunday. To me, the highlight of the week is the liturgy. And to me, when we go there on Sundays, and I can't say 100% of the time, but a lot of the time, honestly, I feel like we're in the kingdom of heaven. And I'm not just saying this because I'm like, I get bored during liturgy more than anybody, forgive me, okay? But I'm saying when everyone is in the spirit, and this person, and this person, and this person, and this person, then it becomes a contagious thing. So it's not necessarily the hymns or the tune. It might be the people who are singing the hymns and the tunes who are not doing so with the Spirit. Because I always think to myself, like I put the burden on myself. If I'm sleeping during the liturgy, and there's no way you're going to be awake. Like if I'm asleep, how are you going to be awake? Like if I'm the one leading and I'm asleep, how are you going to be awake? So I feel like when the people and the Spirit, and I always tell our congregation, is that we prepare for liturgy. All right, we don't just show up at liturgy, like we prepare and we come ready to meet the Lord, and we're coming like we're coming to the Last Supper. When we have that spirit and we pray and then we worship with one voice, then it's not the liturgy itself. It may be the way that we are celebrating the liturgy. Okay, so that's all I'll say.
I think, at least the Egyptian accent is better than the Indian accent. Just imagine. Just Kuhn instead of Queen, really. But so it's been tough for us the past couple of years. But
we're gonna broadcast this.
But one thing you did mention something that's very important is when to bring those outside of the church, and that's where Saturday evening Bible studies are very important, and that's where within the history of the church, the doors of the church and the people who were not baptized in the church would leave after the liturgy of the word. So if you look at the history of the church, the liturgy was really for the faithful. It was after the liturgy of the word, when actually the anaphora is about to begin, that those who were not familiar with it would be walking out. So it's kind of a thought to us that the liturgy is really to feed the faithful. If you're trying to invite one of your friends, it's not to tell you not to bring them to liturgy, but it's tell you to first step is bring them to a Bible study, bring them to an evening prayer or something like that.
Actually, this is what I was going to say.
Okay. Well, that's loud. So for college students that are still in college,
Don't feel bad. Yesterday, Abune Anthony said, so there was a dead person, and he was dead.
I'm just making sure that our college students in college understand.
all right. So, we all have the opportunity for study abroad, right? We can go to various countries, and with the study abroad program via the school, they give like parameters of like, okay, you're going to be doing this kind of work, or you're going to be working with these kind of people and study this kind of things. And some of it is very conducive to spiritual enlightenment and actual service. Like, there's a couple of study abroads that do allow community service. So as a Christian, going to these places, of course, it's our job to evangelize and to be spreading the good news. But is it, is it like acceptable to be considering some of the work that we do missionary, even to the confines of what we're doing according to the world, is not that? Does that make sense?
Can you restate the question just very concisely?
Okay. So if a school, like if you do something with a...
Sorry. Let me ask, are you saying if you were to go do a study abroad program overseas and you were to do service out there, like a medical mission? Outside of the church, is that still considered a mission?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
So I think you guys kind of...
No, there was...
Next question.
Sorry.
We just want to hear the questions.
Just do just questions, no answers. Just that'll be.
It's the Q session.
We said mission, evangelism is witnessing to Christ. You're going to help people. What would Jesus do? Did Jesus, when he was walking and doing miracles and doing good, define that this is mission or evangelism, or he did out of his love to the people, right? So you are doing something because of your love to God. Because if you don't love God, you're not going to love your neighbor. And at the same time, if you don't love God, you're not going to do good things. So you have the first step, which is the relationship with God. And God put goodness in your heart to do good things. So every time you do good things, we said we are seeding. You seed. It doesn't have, preaching doesn't have to be opening the gospel and preaching. I'm going to tell you a story about a person. I think you heard this story before, but this, I think in the 40s or 50s, an Egyptian teacher went to an African country and he was teaching there. And they told him, you know what, we know that you're Christians, you're not allowed to bring Bible, you're not allowed to bring anything, you're not allowed to talk about Christ. So I said, okay. He accepted the regulation and the laws and the rules, and he didn't talk about Christ. But he was witnessing to Christ in his life. So he died, the people loved him, and they buried him. 20 years, missionary came to the country, and they started talking about Christ and about his life and about the good things he was doing. And the people in the village told him, you know what, we saw him, we witnessed him, and he died and we buried him. So the missionary spoke to him, this guy, he died 2,000, 3,000 years ago. He said, no, this is his tomb, come with us. So they thought of this person as Christ himself, because without speaking a word about Christ, because he witnessed to Christ with his works. So for you to do that, I consider this a great evangelism, a great mission to witness to Christ. And I'm sure that out of those seeds you've been throwing for 6 months, 8 months, a year, somebody will come and approach you and say, why do you have this kind of character? Why do you have this love? What are you doing? Why are you doing this? Why you're out of your comfort zone from America and you come here to help us? Did you ever think about why people move from America to Africa and they may get sick and they may die there, but they want to do some good things? Because of their love to God and love the human race. So yeah, I mean, why not? And I know that out of this service, there is people who will know Christ because of this service. Guys, you have to remember, seed. Seed. With Christ, it is not about numbers. Abuna Anthony was saying that. It's not about, it doesn't make sense. He told Joseph 1/5. Abuna did the math, he's great at math, he said it should be 1/7, right? So this is, with Christ, everything is, I don't want to say upside down, but everything is miracles. 5 loaves and 2 fish. Why not loaves 10? Why not 20? Even if we have 1,000. I mean, we are, how many people are here? 300, 400? And those people know that we're coming, and they were out of chicken and meatloaf, right? In the kitchen. True? Right? So this is a blessing. God has different kind of blessing and numbers. So please don't measure the success of the church of how many people are attending the church. Okay? Measure the success of how many righteous person is attending the liturgy and have a good relationship with God. How many one of those people are really witnessing to God. We said in the beginning that we are culture and this is a social club. Okay? You can go to a country club and you'll find 1,000 members in the country club. Any one of them witnessing Christ now? Is it a successful country club? Yeah, I mean, if they have a lot of money, it's financially successful. But spiritually, it's zero. So with the work, when you do work with God, don't measure it with numbers, because his blessings are abundant.
It's good now. Okay. I guess you guys kind of touched on this a little bit, but my question is, I mean, people in your parishes are obviously very lucky because you guys have the vision and you're all about the community outreach. But my direct question is, in people who are not as lucky to be near a church where the priests have that kind of vision, and say, like, I, not necessarily me, have done everything right and I have been evangelizing to people, and then I come to bring them to the church and they feel defeated because the church doesn't provide for them that last piece that they need. What are we supposed to do in that sort of situation?
You had to go there, huh? You had to go there. The elephant in the room, that one.
Referrer, guys. There is a referral program in our churches, 10%. I think Abuna Michael answered this yesterday. He said, we are serving different kind of people, okay? And if he feels that he cannot serve this person, he will send him to another church to be served. If somebody just came from Egypt and he speaks only Arabic, and all the services in English, and the kids cannot learn, so he will say, okay, you know what, there is XYZ church next to me, 20 miles, he can go. Or he will tell Abuna in the church, please, we have a new family, newcomers, and they cannot speak the language, so can you please visit them and take care of them. We are one church, as we said. The benefit, it's for the members of the church. Now we make it hard.
So I think I think this is an opportunity to have a conversation with the parish priest in the parish in which you belong, and to really when I say you, I mean you, because I think it's an opportunity to have conversations and to say there's a need here, and people really are hungry for Christ, and we'd like to bring them, but these are some of the concerns, these are some of the challenges. I literally have had probably half a dozen conversations with people over the last 24 hours specifically about this point. There are various needs in the church. And I think what I'm seeing happening this weekend and last year and over the last several years is God is raising up a generation of godly women and men who are going to lead the church into the future. Let me remind you guys, 10 years ago, we were sitting in these retreats picking our noses, asking, can we have boyfriends and girlfriends? Is it okay to date? Can we go to parties? This is where we were 10 years ago, guys. This is where we were a decade ago. And now we're sitting in a conference and saying we want to share the message of Jesus Christ. As we've experienced it, as our church has experienced it over the last 2,000 years, we want to share this with the world. Like, we have really grown up as a generation. God's glory is being revealed in a really beautiful way. And I think a huge part of it has to do with what he's doing among his people. So I would encourage that those of you who are here, that God has put this in your heart, speak to your priests, speak to the fathers. The priests in your churches, please understand, this is something that's important to them. We've discussed this on some level in the clergy meetings. Many of them see the need for this. Many of them. They're just saying we're not perhaps particularly equipped. We don't, it's not in our experience to do it, but we'd love to see this happen. You talk to us and tell us how to do it. Get a group together, y'all start working, and you tell us, like, come to us and tell us, like, this is what we think we should do. So I think I would really take that as a call to go back and respectfully and lovingly, but with a vision, with a focus, start having a conversation.
So I have a quick, I don't know about quick question or not, but so ministry as a service, right? For example, my church, we get 3 families of newcomers every week. I've been going to this church for 16 years, and every Sunday, a lot of people that I don't know and never seen before. So there's a lot of services going on in our church. And I understand that ministry is important. We do ministry by our actions at work, how we behave at work, and stuff like that. Now, when we take a group of servants, which we lack, and bring them to a different service outside of the church, we take away from the services within the church itself. Now, if we can't save the people who are in the ark, which is the church, how can we save others that are outside the ark? For example, we have a lot of newcomers, and we need to translate for homework and stuff like that. So there's a lot of service throughout the whole week, even Sundays. The reason why we don't have a lot of servants on Sundays because servants leave and they don't have time. They have their own personal stuff to do. So when we take that service, we take these servants during other days that they're needed within the church to do ministry outside of the church. We take away, you don't know how much harm it causes those newcomers because they end up being left back from school because they just don't understand. They're very good at math, they just don't understand the question. So my question is that thought process correct, or how do we go about this situation?
Does anyone want to? I have a lot to say, but I always do. Go for it. I'll let James go first.
One verse that popped up really quickly in terms of that. Christ said, "These ought to have been done without leaving the others undone." So I'm not sure why. Again, we're coming to strive for greatness, and I think we shouldn't limit God and limit God working within a certain parish. And maybe we were focused on, there's so much limited servants, and we have a pool of 10, 20, 30. Whereas I agree with you that all the internal stuff is extremely important. It's crucial. And yes, we have to take care of our own. And yes, pastoral care is important, and it should not be ignored. So if I hope the message of all this is definitely not to ignore the within. But why it's hard for me to understand that we can only do one thing, and why not develop a group, no matter how big or how small, depending on what the parish is. These are the ones that are more passionate to do this. These are the ones that are more passionate to do that. That is for like specific missions, specific, let's say missions and stuff like that. The other aspect is, I think also Abuna Anthony said, everything we do is spiritual. Everything. So in other words, we're not like we're just Sunday school servants, and that's really important, and then we can't evangelize. Evangelize is our daily walk. Every time we're out in the streets, we're like our minds praying for the cashier that just checked you out at your local grocery store, just asking God to open that person's heart. Could be a form of evangelism. We said that just having normal relationships with other people outside is also, so it's something that we just do, just like breathing. It's just like we don't take extra time to breathe. It just happens naturally. And then what we want is try to have that as a natural response too, in terms of who we meet, who we're praying for. We've seen, I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Facing the Giants. It's a great football movie and a Christian movie, so you combine two amazing things. And in that movie, there was a janitor of this high school, and maybe it wasn't clear at the beginning of the movie, but at the end of the movie, he was going to every single locker room, just praying for that student. So I guess it's hard for me to absorb. We should just focus here, whereas we want it to be a natural thing to have on our minds the salvation of every soul that we meet. Again, just praying for the cashier that checked us out, praying for I on an airplane, instead of please God, don't crash this plane. Please, whatever you do, get this plane. I don't care how long it's going to take. Get it to there. Why don't we just 2 seconds? God, reveal yourself to every passenger in this plane. So asking all these little things that we can do, it doesn't take extra time. It's just kind of like a mindset that we maybe want to try to develop to spread God's word, whether through us, through our prayer. That's not taking extra time. It's just part of our natural daily routine in life.
Just want to add two very quick things. Number one, I think if we don't go in this direction, in 50 years, the church dies. I know that sounds alarmist, but I've seen it happening with some of the other Orthodox churches that have been here longer. think the other side of it, which is fantastic, that we find happening in the Antiochian Orthodox Church, that Father Vijay mentioned earlier, Metropolitan Philip had a vision for the Antiochian Church, and that vision has led to a revival of all their churches. There's something incredible when we look at other people who are not cradle Orthodox walking into our churches, falling in love with Jesus Christ in the church, as experienced by the Orthodox Church, and how I have personally seen that inspire other people who are cradle Copts, and has moved them to a different place of just church attender, fan, to follower of Jesus. So I think on many levels, it's somewhere we have to go.
Good. So you answered the question about why we can't change the liturgy and that it's above you. But how do you answer the question, or do you answer to the critics that say that the mission church's type of worship is quote unquote too Protestant and that it deviates from the Coptic tradition?
Easy. I say what Jesus said. Come and see. And I know he's not asking that question. So I'm saying we're taking everything innocent. Don't no one jump on this guy's case, okay? Because he's a good guy. He's the guy who makes the video.
He's
okay?
Canadian, so.
So it's very easy. I always say the easiest thing to do, okay, is to sit here and criticize. Okay, I can easily, each one of you can come up here on stage, tell me what you do, and I find something wrong in everything that you do. Okay, but the one who, like, what I always say is certain people. I'll be very honest here. Be very honest. Okay, don't no one get upset. People criticize me.
Who are we talking about?
Some
Can you give us names, titles?
Just go check Facebook, okay?
And Twitter. Instagram.
With all, and I say this from the bottom of my heart, and I know some people take this against me, I don't care. I don't care about someone who doesn't know me who criticizes me. I care about people who know me. And what I always tell to Bishop David, okay, when we started the church, I remember I sat in front of Pope Shenouda, okay, and he said, you're going to do this, and you're going to report to Emba David. And that's what he told me. So as far as I was concerned at that time, I had two people I was reporting to. Of course, the Pope, okay, but Bishop David, and I told him, anything you need from me, you let me know. And as long as you and I are cool, I'm cool. And then I have my congregation. If my congregation and my supervisor, I don't care what other people say. You see what I'm saying? Especially people who don't know me and don't know my church. So to someone who is, that's why I'm saying this carefully, like someone who's outside the church to say that, I wouldn't waste 2 seconds to think about it. Someone who's within the church, who's a member of the church, who has to come and talk about it, then we can have a discussion together. But don't believe everything that you hear, is what I'll say. And don't believe everything that you read. And don't believe everything that's out there, because some people, like I said, I could sit here and I could say something about every single, like that's easy. The easiest thing to do is sit back and shoot down the guy who's trying to do something. But you know who doesn't shoot down people? It's people who are working. People who are sitting end up shooting because they're sitting. And they have to justify their own sitting. But people who are working, like for example, like with all due, like I'm going to say right here, like my father's right here. Let's say I make mistakes all the time. And I know I make mistakes. And I say things wrong sometimes in a sermon. I have no problem. And I know to admit that. If I see Father James make a mistake, last thing I'm going to do is call him out on it. Because I know I made a mistake. So I may talk to him after, and he may talk, like, this is okay. This is not a problem for us, because I understand that it's not easy to do certain things, and I give credit for the guy who's trying. So, but the person who sits there and isn't a part of it and just say something, we wouldn't listen to them. That's what I would say. But I'm not saying, and I'm not trying to like make a statement or nothing like that. Like honestly, I hope what you guys see is we're trying to be open and honest, and we take everything with a good spirit here, because y'all really, like Father Michael said, is like this is the generation of people that we all need to be like-minded, thinking the same thing, and no one's making any statements, and no one's trying to say something, and I'm sure I'm gonna get criticized for that, okay? But it doesn't really matter.
At FR Anthony, I don't care what they think. #Momentum14. Tweet it.
But hey, by the way, Bishop David comes tonight, so we will not talk about any of this. All this, none of this ever happened. Okay. All right, cool. Thank you all very much. Thank you, Mina. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you to the fathers.
So, yeah, one more thanks for the fathers. That was really a fantastic panel. And sorry if we didn't get to your questions. There was just a lot of interest, which is a beautiful, beautiful thing. But the fathers will be around today if you want to come up to them. They're very willing to have a private conversation with you. That being said, what we're going to do now is we're going to have some worship time, like a minute or two of worship. So just give us a second for the worship team to set up, and then we're going to jump into exercise 4, I believe.
Stretch yourselves for 1 minute,
Get a little-
and then
get
we're
a-
going to just transfer and stretch for a minute.
But please don't leave.